What's going on, Pocket Theory? It's your main man, Suds, coming to you from my home office here in Austin, Texas. What are we talking about today? We're talking about lanyards.
Roosevelt, how's that lanyard coming?
Horrible.
Knife lanyards, to be exact. But what exactly is a knife lanyard, and why do some people use them and why do some people not use them? Well, the quick answer is a knife lanyard is good for retention, accessibility, and personalization. When you talk about utility, you're talking about grip, security, and accessibility. Lanyard can extend your grip for better leverage. Security, it prevents the knife from falling out of your hand, which could be useful around water. And accessibility, it can be used as a pulling aid. It makes it easier to slide the knife out of a sheath or out of a pouch. And of course, if it's a high visibility lanyard, it makes it easier to find your knife in the dark or if it gets dropped. But it can also be purely decorative. It's a way to help you identify your knife if you're in a group setting, or maybe you're just the type of person who likes to personalize everything, or maybe it's just a fun way to express your personality or show your support for something like your favorite sports team. This Civivi Baby Banter, it already comes in white and red. All I had to do was add a yellow lanyard, and now I've got a Kansas City Chiefs knife. You guys all like the Chiefs, right? Like, there's nobody that would jump in the comments just to say, fuck the Chiefs, is there? No, of course not. Did you see the Super Bowl on Sunday? The Eagles kicked our asses pretty bad. It was brutal. But anyway, as far as the decorative element is concerned, I mean, this is a donut knife. So I put a donut bead with a lanyard on here. And aside from making the knife look cooler, it also extends my grip. When it comes to fixed blade knives like this tough Lil Roughneck, you can definitely use it to extend your grip. This is a chunk, but the handle's not too big, so the lanyard gives me a little extra pinky length of grip on there. Same thing for one of my favorite knives, which is this Boker Magnum Lil Friend. As you can see, the knife itself is very tiny and the handle is only about a couple inches long, so the lanyard gives me a full grip on this knife. I love this knife. When a knife is big enough, I don't need to use a lanyard. So for a full-size Benchmade bug out, you can see my hand fits this handle pretty well. I don't need a lanyard on that knife, but the Bug Out Mini is a smaller knife. When this is open, this gives me an extra pinky grip on the knife itself, makes it easier to hold in my hand. This is my fancy Civivi Baby Banter. It's my carbon fiber Damasteel model, and I put a black lanyard on there, but just to be fancy, I put this little Civivi bead on here as well. But you don't need fancy beads for your lanyard. For my squid, I just used a couple of hex bolts. Maybe you've got a ridiculous machete like this one that I found at the Austin All-City garage sale. This actually has a lanyard hole, and it came with this lanyard pre-installed. Now, ostensibly, I think the reason is that you can use your machete, and if you drop it, it won't fall all the way to the ground. But with something this big, when you drop it, now you've got this giant machete kind of hanging around. This seems kind of dangerous, so I'm not sure how I feel about that. But for a fixed blade like my Mora knife, I actually drilled a hole in the handle myself so that I could add this lanyard. Now, this is my most used knife. I didn't plan it that way. It just ended up being that way. And I use it a lot when it's outdoors. Now, I damn near dropped this onto my foot 2 different times, and I just got lucky that it didn't stab through my foot. So I decided I was gonna add a lanyard to it. And some people will tell you not to do this, because if you drop your knife and it's got a lanyard, it might stab into you somewhere. So my advice is this: with a fixed blade such as this, you wanna make sure that the blade is oriented up and away from you. So if you do drop the knife, the blade's not swinging into your arm and you're not going to get stabbed with the tip. But this lanyard is actually very utilitarian, and it prevents me from dropping the Mora knife. Not every knife needs a lanyard. My Chavez does not have a lanyard hole. I don't know if the lanyard would look good on this anyway, but I don't even need it because the handle fits my hand perfectly. So today I thought I would show you how you, in less than 10 minutes, can add a lanyard to your pocket knife. And for the purposes of today's demonstration, I'm going to be using this Kershaw that I found for $8 at the Texas State Surplus Store. If you haven't watched my video on the Texas State Surplus Store, go watch that video. It's actually pretty entertaining. Sidebar, whoever owned this knife before me put a wicked edge on this blade. I don't think it came from Kershaw this sharp. This thing is sharp as frick. This is a house knife. This is a beater knife. This is something that I use to cut up cardboard boxes and open up packages. So I don't necessarily need a lanyard for this knife. As you can see, the handle is big enough to fit my hand just perfectly, but since it is a house knife, I decided I'm going to put something high visibility on here so it's easy to find. So I'm going to use this high-vis green paracord that I got from Paracord Planet. Shout out to Paracord Planet. I get all my paracord from them. Let me show you how it's done.
Your socks are down, your shirt tails are untucked, your trousers are not properly pressed. You are reported for a uniform violation.
All right, boys and girls, we got our high-vis paracord. We've got our $8 Kershaw knife from the Texas State Surplus Store, and we've got our paracord kit. If you watched my video on this paracord kit, you will already know I have all my paracord supplies in one convenient kit. For today's project, we're just going to be using these scissors and this flattening tool. This is one of my favorite tools to use when I'm doing paracord knots. One other item, this little clamp back here. I actually use this to help hold my knife in position while I tie the lanyard on it. So you'll see that in a second. In addition to those items, I have this butane torch that I use to melt my paracord, the ends, to make sure that they don't fray. I'm going to throw these tools aside. I've got a length of paracord here. This is approximately maybe 2 feet. Maybe not even quite that much, and that's all you need. In addition to this paracord, I also happen to have this little bead left over from my KeyUnity video, so I'm gonna use this KeyUnity bead because 2025 is the year that I use what I have. So let's just jump into it, shall we? First things first, here's my $8 Kershaw that I got from the Texas State Surplus Store. I'm gonna use the clamp to do just like that and then set it on its end. This will help me so that the knife doesn't flip around while I'm tying the lanyard to it. So on one end of my paracord, you can see this has been melted. It's a little bit too fat to fit through the hole. So what you can do is just take your scissors and cut it at a little bit of an angle, and then take your torch, give her a little bit of a melt, and then give it a squeeze with your fingertips. Yeah, it's hot, but it's not going to burn you. And now you've got a little needle shape at the end of your paracord, and look at that. It slides right through. We're gonna just do this the super simple method. I know that there are multiple ways to tie snake knots, but if you're interested in learning paracord knotting, you can definitely find some links in the description of this video to some other paracord channels that I have learned from, but I'm just gonna show you a very simple method to get this done quickly. You wanna take this side and go around the top and back like this, so it's wrapped around this side, and then you take this guy, feed it underneath, and then up through this loop here, and then just cinch it down simply.
Why is it up so high?
You want to leave yourself a little space up at the top.
Lower.
But then, in order to get this locked in, you do want to grab it, give her a little tug, and there you have your very first snake knot. And then you just repeat that procedure over and over. You go over the top, back around the back, underneath, and then up and through, and then look at that. You got another snake knot length. You cinch it down, you give it a nice pull. I like to go this side, then that side when I'm pulling, then the same thing. Up and around, you make that loop, you go underneath it, and then you pull this down from the top, and look at that. Look how quickly we just tied 3 little snake knots. And now you've got the beginnings of your lanyard. The next step is that you're gonna put the bead on. So you just feed that through one side. You don't wanna try to stuff these through both at the same time, otherwise it's probably gonna give you a hard time. And then you can twist to get through, and then bloom. Now you go through with the bead, and look at this. Look what's happening here. The lanyard is almost all the way done. That clamp is helping hold the knife in position so that it doesn't get all crazy, but you no longer need this because we're about to progress to step 2, which is going to be adding the diamond knot to the end. Now, this is a little bit more complicated, so I'm going to try to do this slowly enough that you can follow me, but also show you how quick and easy it can be. Do not be intimidated by a diamond knot because trust me, if I can do it, anybody can do it. So to get the diamond knot going, you want to get your middle finger back in here and separate the 2 strands. Then you want to take this guy, roll it up like this, and flip it over. Then take this guy behind and go up, down through the middle, and through this loop. And what you're doing here is you're making a little pretzel. You see how it kind of looks like a little pretzel right there? So now, if you take your finger out a little bit, you want to keep locked in the middle. You take this in the back, you go up, down, and through the middle, and then you take this end and you go behind all of that, and then up, down, and through the middle again. I know that was a little hard to see, and then you pull. And now look what starts to happen. Don't be worried about this excess. We're gonna take care of that in a quick second. So boom. Now you've got your diamond knot. Next is the cinching. So in order to get this all cinched up, I like to use this flattening tool because it comes through here. Now this is kind of tricky. You're gonna wanna cinch this guy up, and it looks like it's one thing, but it's actually, you gotta make sure you're pulling up the right way. So this is when you cinch up the slack like this, and you wanna start with one thing at a time. You pull that through, you go there, and you pull it up through this way. See, I'm just grabbing it with the flattening tool, but then I'm actually pulling it up with my fingers. You don't need much more pressure than that. You go through here, pull this guy down, and then now, bloop, look at that. So the last step, you just want to get through here, cinch up this side, and now look at, the diamond knot is sitting right on top of the bead. Pull this down like that. Just keep feeding it through. Takes a little bit of patience, a little bit of effort, but once you master this, as you can see, I only really know how to do the snake knot and the diamond knot, but look at that. Now, it's a little bit funky, but we're about to tighten it up a little bit. So this is when you can really get in there and pull. You squeeze that in there, and now, boom. You got yourself a little lanyard right there. This isn't the best looking diamond knot that I've ever done. I'll probably go through and retie this again, but look at that. It's a basic hi-vis lanyard. You got 3 snake knots and a diamond knot. You take your scissors, you cut the ends off. You want to be a little bit careful at this point, but you don't have to be too careful because you're just going to melt this. Bloop. If you wanted to, you could use the flattener to flatten that out. I think this is going to look perfect just the way it is. And you give it a little bloop like that. Singe off this end. And look at that, ladies and gentlemen. That is how it's done. You got yourself a knife lanyard. Just that simple.
Good.
Knife lanyards. Maybe it's for utility purposes or maybe it's just for fun. Only you know for sure. But when it comes to adding a lanyard to your knife, just remember to think outside the box, be creative with your gear, and have fun with your EDC. This is Suds with Pocket Theory.
Jiminy Cricket, he flew the coop.
Carry what you want.